What if I told you that you could design and live the life that you want on your own terms? Would you do it? Would you take a leap into the unknown? Or would you settle for a life of limits, a life of safety but lacking true meaning? Zephan Moses Blacksburg here, and I'm on a journey to help you ignite your inner passions, let go of your fears, and get more out of life. Will you join me and make this year your year of purpose? Welcome to the Year of Purpose podcast. Welcome back to the Year of Purpose podcast. This is Zephan Blacksburg, and today I have my friend Dotan, and Dotan has lived a life that is completely outside the box. Frustrated with the routine 9-to-5 lifestyle in 2010, he took all of his savings to travel around the world and pursue a career in music. Since then, he has traveled to more than 24 countries, lugging a 500-pound upright piano and meeting more than 10,000 people. He now lives in New York City and performs regularly around town. Dotan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Yeah, man. So you are back in New York right now. Tell me a little bit about what's happening right now, because you traveled for a really long time, and now you're kind of back at home base.
Yeah, so I've been traveling on and off for about 4 years. My first trip was 5 months. I did around 15,000 miles around America. And my second trip, from there, I drove from New York to Costa Rica and back again. That was 8 months. And so I traveled on and off between New York and the rest of the world. And so now I'm back home in New York, and I'm kind of, it's funny to say this, but I'm a little bit tired of traveling like this. It's pretty grueling. It's difficult having to travel and having to find a place to sleep and what I'm going to eat and all these different things. And but I'm here in New York right now and just trying to transition a little bit for a little while and trying not to travel as much.
Well, we'll jump into that in just a sec. Tell me about where you were in life when you first were just like, I'm going to take all my stuff and hit the road and get a piano and a truck. Like, what was going through your head? What were you feeling with life? And what did you want more of?
So this is around 2010. I was out of college for 2 years. And what's interesting is I got out of college in 2008, just when when the stock market started to crash and all these big, there was a lot of fear in the air. I was in New York City. I just got out of college, and I spent 2 years kind of being unsure. My father kind of pushed me to go into real estate. I got my license. I jumped around from job to job without really feeling any sort of fulfillment or feeling happy with where I was. And after 2 years, I felt like I'd wasted a lot of time around New York City. I felt like I wasted time. I didn't feel like I was on track or going towards a specific thing that I wanted. Right when 2010 came, my dad's friend offered me a job to drive his truck from New York to Miami. And he's an artist, and so the idea was to drop off his paintings to Art Basel in Miami. And I did that job, and he paid me really well for it. And that week, I get a phone call from a friend who was living in Dominican Republic. And he told me, hey, you should come down if you're going to be in Miami. It's just a short flight away. So I was like, I took all that money. It was like maybe $400. And flew to Dominican Republic and had the most incredible adventure of my life. I think that it was this trip that gave me this initial spark of sort of being just in love, just falling in love with traveling and adventure and the spontaneous spirit of exploration. So I went down to Dominican, had the most amazing adventure, learned how to ride a motorcycle and rode motorcycles in the rainforest and met local people in small towns. And then I flew back to Miami, and I had to drive back to New York with all the paintings and stuff, and I got paid again. And so I came back to New York having this amazing experience, and I came back home with some profit in my pocket. I came home with a couple $100 profit. So I'm like, I started to think, oh, this is amazing. What if I can make money and travel the world? Like that would be the ideal life for me. Um, and so from then on, I went on this journey to figure out how can I do this. And I kept working for this guy who was an artist, and I did deliveries for him. And after about 6 months, I just felt miserable again. I was making $12 an hour. It was crap. It was not. I didn't feel. I wasn't learning anything. I wasn't being challenged, and I didn't feel like I was doing anything that was gratifying. And eventually, I mean, through that 6 months, I figured out, or I came up with this idea to travel around the world and play piano, and that way I can make money and travel, and I'd be living on the road, and it would be like this amazing adventure. And so it was in August 2010 when I started playing piano on the streets. And initially, I really was not a very good piano player. I was pretty bad. And I would go on the streets and I'd push this piano like 5 to 10 blocks just to play in City Hall Park, and I'd make like $50. I'd make like $10 an hour doing it, and it was terrible. It sucked, but it was. I started meeting people, and what made it so much fun was that people would come up to me and like, "Hey, this is so cool," and I literally was meeting people from all over the world, and yeah, I was making a little bit of money from piano. I wasn't making much, but it was. I was trying to figure out a way to do this, and so I just kept doing it, kept playing piano on the streets, and then in September of 2010, because I was fairly new to moving the piano fell back and landed on my hand, and I broke 2 fingers in my hand.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was one of the worst days of my life and one of the most painful experiences at the hospital. I was screaming my head off in pain, and yeah, so I was out of commission for 3 months, but yeah, I got so lucky that the piano didn't fall on any of my joints, so it just hit the tips of my fingers, and so after 3 months, I healed. And most people would think that after an experience like that, they would not want to play piano anymore on the streets. But I kind of saw it as like this big turning point that, you know what, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. And so I literally took all the money I saved up. It was around 12 grand. I bought a box truck on eBay. It was like a 12 foot moving truck with a box in the back. I set it up with carpeting. I had a cooler. I had a little closet. I had my piano and a ramp, and I did a little bit of planning, not much, and then I just hit the road. I was living out of this box truck, and still at that point I really wasn't that good of a piano player, but I just kept playing. I played every day. I played 4 or 5 hours every day, and I traveled on that trip to like 36 states, a couple hundred cities in America for 5 months. I did 15,000 miles, and it was the most glorious experience of my life. It really changed my life. As you know, now I'm talking to you, Zeph, and I'm sure it changed yours when you first went out and got to see what the world is really like, rather than just this routine, lifestyle that maybe you were living. I mean, this routine lifestyle that I was in before I traveled. So yeah, my first trip, all right, so to go back a little bit, I kind of just went off a little bit.
That's okay.
Go back, the feeling that I was feeling was I was just so frustrated with life. I didn't feel like I was being challenged, and I'm sorry, I already went into that, right?
Yeah, it's all good.
So what was the other question that you asked?
Well, how about let's go into like, did you have any fears when you first started this, or was this just kind of like hey, this is a cool idea, let's just do it?
Yeah, I was so fearful, and you know what? Even in the beginning, when I first started playing piano in New York, I was embarrassed to be like looked at. I was embarrassed that I was doing this. Like, what am I doing? I felt like such a fool. But I knew it was something that, because I started something extraordinary. It was something extraordinary, and two, it was something that no one else was really doing at that time in 2010. And so I knew I wanted to keep doing it because of those things, because I wanted to try something that no one's really done, and I wanted to do something extraordinary with my life. But yet I was fighting every day. I was fighting this fear. I mean, there were days I wouldn't want to go out and play because I was so scared and like, I don't want to move the piano. I don't want to do this. There were days I wouldn't go out because of that fear. But eventually I learned to love it. I learned to love it because it brought me so much joy, and it was the benefits far exceeded the fear, and that's why I kept going at it.
Yeah.
But then when I first started traveling, the fear was also very deep because people would tell me like, "Oh, you're crazy. Why would you ever do that? Why would you live in a box truck? Like it's don't go to New Orleans. They're gonna kill you there. They're gonna chop off your head." I don't know. I heard stories. I heard stories like that even like with Mexico too. Like I told people, yeah, I want to do this big trip to Costa Rica, and the reason why I did it is because it's difficult, because it's challenging, because yeah, I can live in New York and do this routine lifestyle and go to work and do the 9 to 5, but I'm not going to be really challenged. I'm just going to be kind of within a box of routine,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
so I
you're
want.
just going through the motions.
Yeah, you're going through the motions that you do every day, so you're used to it. It's normal. It's a normal thing that you do every day, you know. And so the idea of going to Costa Rica was this like, it's freaking scary, but it's this challenge that I knew I would walk away from it with with knowledge, experiences, friends, and um, yeah, and
It
so yeah,
it's
go ahead.
interesting what you were saying. Two things. One thing was about the travel and how just the fear of traveling. I was pretty afraid too. I had been to out of the country maybe two, three times max.
Yeah,
And so when I decided that I was going to take a whole month and travel around the whole country, like my big fear was not having the money for it. And I really like that you even said this too. You said, I wasn't even the best at playing piano, and you get better as you go. And I wasn't the best at traveling, and you learn and you get better as you go. So eventually, like
yeah,
I had taught myself how to travel hack and how to get airline flights for next to nothing. And it's one of those things where it's like if you want it bad enough, you'll find a way to do it. So I really like that. You just kept pushing for it. Um, and then the other thing was that, when I was traveling too, I saw something interesting around the US because it's like you think that you're going to go to Texas and it's going to be, ranchers and steakhouses. And the truth of the matter is, I got there and it's like they have a McDonald's, they have a Panera, they have a Chick-fil-A. Like it's no different than anywhere else. A lot there's many more landmarks and things to see and museums and monuments and all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's not really as scary as people think.
yeah, yeah. I agree with that. I think. Um, I mean, I think our impression, if you don't travel, our only way to know about the world is to like hear about it from secondhand information from other people. And so like I remember I once met a woman. I think this is one of the greatest stories or the greatest people I've ever met. Is like I think it was at south of the border, like South Carolina. Um, I had a burrito. This is on that delivery, my first trip in 2010, that art delivery. I stopped there to get like a burrito, and I met this old woman. It was just me and this old woman at this restaurant. And I remember talking to her, and I was talking to her about travel. And he's like, she was telling me about how like, he's like, I don't understand how you can travel like that. And I asked her, have you ever traveled? She was like, no. And she's like, I've never been outside of that little town in South Korea. And she was like 60, South Korea. She said, I'd never been outside of this little town in South Carolina. And she was maybe 65 or something. And I was shocked to hear that this woman never left this town. And most of it was because she's like, have you watched the news? Do you see what goes on in the world? I have no interest in going out there. And so it's this impression that's this impression that's built inside of this woman through all these images on TV and this secondhand information, which really doesn't provide the truthful depiction of what it's really like there out there to travel the world, or to be out there in the world.
Oh, it's completely wrong. We just
Yeah.
had in Baltimore, we made national news because there was an African American male that was, murdered by police officers, and there were riots and all sorts of stuff. And
Yeah.
the media tried to make it look like my entire city was burning to the ground. And, I actually had someone I know was in Italy on a vacation, and it was on TV in Italy. And so the message got spread worldwide.
Yeah.
But I drove past all of this going to my office, when it was all happening. It's like 2 or 3 square blocks, and Baltimore is a pretty large city.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where the media and the outside world have this really bad representation of what's actually going on.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I saw all the footage on like Facebook and stuff and certain videos.
Yeah, but so tell me this, how about like the first month that you're traveling and you're away from home? Was there any one thing that you learned that really surprised you, whether it was about yourself or about traveling and following what you wanted to do?
When I first started traveling, um,
Yeah, just like in the first few weeks, like was there anything that really surprised you that you learned, whether it was about yourself or about being on the road?
hmm. Yeah, I have to like go back now and think about it. I actually thought about it. I have to go like just rethink about what it was like back then. Um, yeah, I think I was so weird because I was living out of this box truck, and it was like the first time where I was ever really faced with these very difficult challenges. And I mean, yeah, I think part of it is what we just spoke about, that realizing that the world isn't this place where everyone's killing each other and robbing each other, and it's not this dangerous place. That in fact there are more good people in the world than there are bad people. There are more nice, generous, friendly, open people in the world than there are people who want to, hurt you. And I think it's so much so that it's like it's 95% of the people in the world just want to like live and enjoy life, and this is 5% that are ruining it for everybody and giving this impression that the rest of the world is this bad place. But in terms of learning something about myself, um, I don't know. I kind of I was living out of a box truck. I would wake up in the morning and I would I'd eat breakfast, and then I'd go and play some piano and make a little bit of money here and there for gas and food, and then I'd pack it up, and sometimes I'd go out and make friends. And uh, I think that one of the biggest things I've learned, though, especially in the beginning, is learning how to make friends, and to meet people, and to um, I don't
I
know.
guess just how to interact with the world, right?
Yeah, with how to interact with the world. I mean, because at the same time, I'm trying to realize, because I've always been a very outgoing guy, and it's not something I've really learned. I think it's just something that's I've always I talk to everybody. I'll talk to homeless people. Like I never really cared. Like even in my travels, I talk to like hobos and people that have been living on the streets, and I talk to them because I'm curious. I'm curious about their stories. I'm curious about who they are and what they've learned. And I've talked to drug addicts. I've met
Yeah.
I've met multiple drug addicts on the street. I actually became friends with like this one guy in Albuquerque who turned out, well, I became really good friends with him initially, and then it turned out he played drums. So I pulled out I had a bunch of drumsticks, and I gave him a bucket. I'm like, hey man, let's play. And so he played. He was like so inspired by playing bucket drums, and what's it called? We became good friends, but we ended up playing together, and he ended up robbing me. He ended up stealing money from
Wow.
me, even though we were friends. But found out that he was a drug addict, and that's why he stole the money. And so I knew where he was sleeping that night, because he was sleeping on this abandoned building on the roof of this abandoned building, and I showed up there, and not to like like hurt him or anything, but I came there. I wanted to ask why. Like, why did you steal from me? And that's when I found out he was a drug dealer. That he's an addict. He even told me like I'm an addict, and he thought I was gonna hurt him. I'm like, no, whatever. It's $40. I'm not gonna hurt you. I don't need to
Yeah.
like punch you or anything. But yeah, it was an interesting experience, I think.
That's crazy. It's interesting that he was just so honest and just told you exactly why he had taken it.
Well,
Um,
I was definitely very angry. Like I confronted him. Like, why would you do this? Why would you do all that? He was like, oh, I'm an addict. I'm sorry. Whatever it is, I had to do it. Whatever. And he like at that point he was going through a really interesting moment in his life, because he got kicked out of his house, of his like grandparents' house, and he got arrested, and I had all. He was like I met him in like the second week after the week after he got out of jail or something. So he was at an interesting point in his life.
And it seems like a lot of people are at interesting points in their life, you know? Like nothing really ever happens when we want it to, especially the bad
Right.
things. And so I know that there's a lot of people listening in right now who, you know, either have the 9 to 5 job or maybe they were like me and either they were laid off or maybe they're unemployed right now. So, what advice do you have for these people that are searching for more and don't really know where to go? Because, like, for you, you figured piano was what you wanted to do and you just went after it and chased it. And a lot of people don't even know that piano is their thing, or how do they figure out what they should do next if they're kind of stuck in that place of not really knowing what to do with their life?
It's this is a very very I think it's a huge point. Um, I'm kind of going through this with my little sister because I'm trying to help her figure out what she wants to do with her life, and she's 21. She's 21 years old. Um, and I always tell her like the only way you're gonna find out is if you just start doing it and just try. I mean, we all have this voice inside our head and the fear and all these things that are getting in our way, but the only way for us to really know is to just go out and try these things. That's the only way we're going to know if we like these things. At the same time, we have to think uh, not everything, you can't make a living eating pizza, you know? So like just because I like eating pizza eating pizza doesn't mean I can make a living through it. So um, finding a passion is great. I mean, it's good to have these hobbies, and it's good to have a passion. But if you want to make it your living, it becomes a whole different animal because not all passions can be monetizable. And not only that, when you're dependent upon your passion to make a living, it changes that passion. And something we spoke about a little bit before this, um, about how when you are dependent upon your passion to make a living, it becomes difficult, and you start to not like it as much anymore. And that's kind of what I found over the years. I started to not enjoy playing piano because I was just so dependent upon playing piano to make a living.
And you told me that you know you were working on extra additional revenue streams, right? So like to be able to support that passion, because it's I was kind of in the same boat. You know, I was running my video production company full time, and I stopped liking the things that I was really good at. And you start to question like what is going on right now. These are the things that I've always loved doing, the things I've always been good at.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the podcast came out of for me was, you know, I had gone on a couple of trips around the country, took some time off for self-discovery. So, you know, maybe share with everybody, you mentioned you had an eBay store, you had done a couple different things to supplement that income.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an eBay store since 2008. I've been selling stuff on eBay. But in 2008, I had an eBay store where I would buy shoes at wholesale price from a couple stores in New York, and I'd resell them online. And that was cool, but there's so much competition on eBay that it becomes like a price worry, and you don't end up making any money. There was that, and since 2008, actually, my dad kind of convinced me to start playing around with the stock market, and so that got messy. Let me tell you. Um, but I started day trading for a while back in 2010, um, which was also a very interesting learning experience. Partially because I saw myself, I turned into like a wolf, where I'd wake up in the morning, I'd get my coffee, wait for that 9:30 bell to ring, and watch numbers go up and down and throw money around. Like it's not like I had a lot of money either. It was just like a couple $1,000
Yeah.
just to try to make a couple $100 a day or something like that. And that was messy. But I did that for a while, and then I realized that is not a fulfilling lifestyle, without a doubt, for me at least. Um, and to supplement I did a lot of moving jobs because I had this uh, I had the box truck. Now I actually have a smaller van, but it's more economical on gas. But for a while, and even now, I've done moving jobs to supplement my income, stuff like that. But my original goal was to figure out a way to be able to travel the world and make money and be able to work from anywhere, to work remotely. And so since 2010, I've been on this journey to figure this out, and I don't think I still haven't figured it out because playing piano is really not a great source of income for me, or at least it hasn't been so far.
But you're
Um,
part of the way there, though. I mean, you've probably learned so much about yourself and about what doesn't work. And it's kind of like with Thomas Edison and the light bulb. You know, he found 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb, and all it took was one way that did work.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree. I think I've had many failures, but failure isn't failure unless it happens at the end, at the last chapter. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not a failure unless like it's the last thing that you've ever done. Um, but
I,
yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, I have found. I mean, I did for example, I did get a bunch of sponsors that have really helped me out. Helped me out in terms of also money as well as exposure. But I got picked. I did a story. I was on Wolf Blitzer
yeah, I saw
Situation
that.
Room, and because of that, um, I did a commercial for Goodyear Latin America where they took my story and they put it in a Spanish commercial, and then they flew me to Peru and stuff, and it was an amazing experience, filming and then being part of that, and so that helped me out a lot. Um, but that is actually a very interesting story because um, I still play piano on the streets on the weekends in New York, but not because it's good money, more so because of the amazing people that are walking in the streets in New York. If you think about it, and you're walking on a Saturday through Soho or New York, if you really think about it, just about every single person there has an amazing story or has some really good relationships or contacts or um, and so how I got on Wolf Blitzer was because I was playing piano on the streets, and I met this one woman who loved my story, and she worked for CNN, and she put me on Wolf Blitzer, and so I have about 25 other stories like that where I was just playing on the streets, and I met this guy, and he ended up loving what I do. I became really good friends with him, and he invited me over his house, and we had dinner with his family, and so I have so many awesome stories like that. That because I do this awesome and extraordinary thing of playing piano around the world, um, it opens me up to so many different people. Like for example, last month I became two friends. I became friends with these two guys in Big Sur. I was playing piano on the edge of a cliff in Big Sur, and these two guys come up to me and I start talking to them. It turns out they're from New York. They each have startup companies. One is the yeah. They each have startup companies. And when I came back to New York, I started hanging out with them, and they invited me to all these parties and dinners with like people that work at Google and big marketing firms. Um, but I still hang out with them. They're great friends of mine. But just last month, I facilitated an $150,000 marketing deal with two people that I've met. It's
Wow.
with like the one of the guys that had a startup company, and then this marketing company that I'm friends with. I'm friends with the creative director, and so yeah, all of this because I play piano on the streets and meet people.
So for every drug addicted thief stealing $40, there's 20 stories of, facilitating $150,000 marketing deals, playing on the edge of a cliff, and, getting onto CNN.
Yeah, you getting on Wolf Blitzer, that guy. It's funny. Yeah, yeah, it's funny. I mean, there was actually one time. This is my favorite story of all time was when I was in Maine in Portland, and I got invited. No, so I'll go back. I was playing piano on the streets in Portland, Maine, and this guy came up to me who was a drummer. He loved what I was doing. He invited me to his family's home, which is located on a small island off the coast of Maine called Vinyl Haven Island. And it's this beautiful, pristine island. So I drove 2 hours north, took a ferry. I met him. His name is Dan, and we drove to his house, and there I was eating dinner with three generations of this family. It was like a family reunion, and had like zucchini that they grew in their garden and fish that they just caught off the coast, and it was an incredible experience. But it turned out the entire family was musical. They all played an instrument or sang, and that night, the older brother and Dan, they were supposed to be playing with their band at the local bar, which is a small bar where like 100 people come and dance. And they were like, "Hey, you should come play with us." And so I'm like, "Yeah, I'll play a song." They set up a keyboard for me. They surprised me and set up this keyboard before I got there. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll play a song or two." And it turned out I ended up playing an entire 4-hour gig. It was the first time I ever played with an entire band. The first time I ever did that. And so I learned how to play with a band. It was such an incredible experience. People were dancing and it was such a great, fun time. And at the end of the 4 hours, at the end of the gig, the older brother comes up to me and he hands me $200 and he goes, "Here, thanks for playing." And I'm like, "What? Did
Wow.
not even know I was going to be playing at a gig or making this money." And it was the most spontaneous experience I've ever had in my entire life where I just said yes to everything that came my way, and it brought me such an incredible experience of discovery. And yeah,
That's
never
awesome.
forget that day. Never forget that.
That's really cool. And I think that you really do find that the world is so much more generous when you start to put yourself out there. I mean, we were on a road trip in back in December. I had taken a 3,000-mile road trip with my roommate, my cousin, and
Awesome.
we found a family that I had connected with about 4 or 5 years ago through my first business that I worked for out of college. And I had kind of stayed in touch with them over Facebook, and throughout the years, I had talked to them once or twice. But they were like, if you're passing through Indiana, let us know, and we'll give you a place to stay for the night. And sure enough, it was like our second or third night on the road, and we passed by them, and I hit her up on Facebook, and she said, here's our address. Come on over. We'll make you dinner. And it was
Awesome.
crazy. We hung out with her kids, and we watched a movie and had dinner with them. And it was funny. She actually kicked her daughter out for the night and made her go to a friend's house so that like we had beds to sleep in.
Oh my God, that's funny. It's funny. I mean, you can tell these stories, but it's until you experience it, it's not as amazing when you hear it until you experience it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a
It's one of those
totally
things.
different experience, but it's one of those things where it's not going to happen unless you open yourself up to it. So, going back
Yeah.
to that fear thing of like, yeah, did somebody rob $40 from you? Yes, but were you killed? No. Was it at gunpoint? No. Was it, like it's one of those things where you deal with these little annoying situations for these 20 amazing situations that come out of it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's funny to say that though. I mean, those things do happen where like you get robbed at gunpoint and stuff. I mean, that happens to people. I mean, I also have an even worse story where in Nicaragua, where those things happen more commonly with travelers. Um, I got my car was broken into, and they literally stole. I mean, I was kind of stupid. It was partially my fault, but they stole my camera, my laptop, my iPhone, and my credit cards, passport. And I was left there. I had like $100 and my car and my piano, a little bit, and some clothes. And I had to go to the embassy to get a new passport. And it was really one of the worst experiences I've ever had, because I was surfing, was learning how to surf, and I came back to the car, and the car was emptied out. But not only that, while I was at the police station giving the police report, I got sun poisoning. So it was like
Oh man.
I hit this complete rock bottom. It was a terrible experience. But I mean, but in terms of the fear, uh, I have to say that you have to just go for it, and of course, keep your guard up because those things do happen, but they're very, very, very rare where they do happen. And like that story in Nicaragua was I attribute it because of my own fault, because of my own stupidity, because my own um, I wasn't careful enough. I wasn't cautious enough.
Yeah, so
I
just
was
being self-aware.
yeah.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like you get to look back on these last 5 years and say, wow, what an amazing journey. And I guess I think the best way to wrap this up is, what do you think the world needs more of right now more than ever? Because your story is not uncommon as far as people being tired of where they are in life, being tired of working these 9 to 5 jobs, or maybe even they're working for themselves and they're just tired of it because they don't know what's going on. So, what do you think the world needs more of, more now more than ever?
What the world needs more, it's interesting. I think it's already happening. I think people need to realize that they can do things on their own. I think people need to kind of realize that they need to kind of take the leap and to get over the fear and get over the voice inside your head and just try to do something that they really want to do, and not give up on that. There'll always be that fear, but I think it's only just a bump in the road. It's only just a little obstacle. I think more so than now, more so than ever in the history of the world, because of the internet, we all have this accessibility to do something great, to do something really great with our lives, and also to be individuals, rather than just be part of a company and to work for a company.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that we all have the ability to do it at this point.
And we totally do. It just comes down to taking that leap of faith. And, the best part about it is your story isn't over. Like you were telling me before the call that you're kind of in a point of transition now. You're not exactly driving all over the place every single day and doing this. But, I mean, you had the last 4 or 5 years to do this. And now you get to go on and make a new experience and figure out what's next. And I think so many people they settle. They get stuck in this rut of, let's do the same thing for 30 years. And then they come out of it and look back on their life and realize that they weren't happy.
Right, they weren't really living at all. And it's funny because I when I first started doing this, I wasn't. I mean, in the last 4 years, I didn't really make a ton of money doing these things. I did them more because of the experiences, the knowledge, the people. On all the trips, I came back home and I had like a little bit of debt, or didn't really have much money when I came back home. But part of that was part of the journey of like the failure and then digging myself out again. I feel like I've failed so many times, and succeeded, but succeeded very few times. But that's with every very successful person in any field. I feel like if you walk up to someone who's very successful and ask him how many times he's failed, he'd tell you, I failed hundreds of times before I found my first success.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been really great to talk to you. I'm really looking forward to staying in touch. And, I'll probably visit New York at some point in the future. I'll have to come find you and hang out for a little bit and listen to you playing. And if you could share with everybody, where's the best place for them to follow you and maybe see a couple of those videos and look into your trip?
Sure. I mean, right now I've been focused a lot on YouTube. I think YouTube is an incredible resource for people, and a way for you to build your passion project or your business even. You can find me on YouTube at Piano Around the World, or you can check out my website, pianoaroundtheworld.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks for spending some time with me, and we'll definitely talk very soon in the future.
Yes, thanks a lot. I really appreciate this, and it's great talking to you.
You've probably heard me talk about designing a life that you actually want to live. You might have even heard about my travels or experiences and thought to yourself, yeah, I do want to do that. Eventually, someday I'll probably do it, and my guess is that you've been thinking about doing it for a long time. So I want to tell you this. Stop thinking. Your time is right now. You don't need any more time. You don't need any more info. You don't need to keep putting it off and planning for the perfect time, because the truth of the matter is this. You could be the person who sits around and thinks about living a better life, or you can be the person that decides that today is the day that you're going to actually do it, and I want that for you. because you already have what it takes. You've got a fire inside. Even if you can't see it right now, it's lit, but you need to open yourself up to the possibilities and throw a couple logs into the flames. So join me and the Year of Purpose tribe by subscribing to our YouTube channel and iTunes podcast. And if you really like us, please leave a review. This is Zephan Moses Blacksburg, and I can't wait to see you again on the Year of Purpose podcast.